all fun and games till someone gets shot.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today I'm going to be reacting to characters we want to see in Tekken 8 from Dash Fight. Now, I was planning on doing this reaction a long time ago, but I was so caught up in doing videos for Tekken 8, for Evo, for Tekken Bloodline. It's been a lot going on, and I'm finally getting around to talking about this. So I'm going to play portions of the video and I'm going to pause it and elaborate on it. Those of you who've been subscribed to the channel, you kind of know the format of how these videos go. For those of you who aren't subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. We're on the road to 4,000. We're very close. Like and subscribe. With that, we're jumping into it.
Tekken has been around for a while. From 1994 to now, the franchise has seen 7 mainline titles, along with a handful of spin-offs, bringing the total roster to over 60 characters. With so many to choose from, it has to be a real challenge for Bandai Namco to decide who is going to be in the starting roster for Tekken 8.
So we're going to pause right here right off the bat. They start off talking about how there's over 60 characters in the game. And I think it's more so like 70. I think that it has to be like 78 total characters in the whole franchise. Probably like 78, I think. But this is something that I always talk about, is how just when you focus on Tekken 7 alone, cranking the roster down from 51 to 20s. I was on a live stream the other day and I asked people, how many characters do you think the base roster to be? And I want everyone watching to comment, how many characters? I say 28. There's a lot of people saying 26, 36, 34. Tekken 7's base roster was 36, but I think they're going to change it up this time around because of how they've been doing DLC characters. I think it's going to be very fascinating looking at the base roster because there's going to be a lot of things at play. Not only will you focus on trying to bring back fan favorites, but you also have to balance what people will buy and will not buy this time around. All of the DLC characters from Tekken 7, I really don't see anyone buying them again besides the people who like those specific characters. So it's going to be very tricky for them to sell characters this time around. Let's continue watching.
Yoshimitsu. This mysterious ninja has seen every mainline title, and all the spin-offs too. From game to game, his appearance keeps shifting into something new, though it often combines elements of traditional samurai armor with some other stranger elements.
I think Yoshimitsu is a good pick, and this really isn't my bias speaking. I think Yoshimitsu is kind of a anomaly, where you have this character where regardless of how they look, the community loves it. And in a game where outfits and past games is so important, to be able to shift and shape a character however you want going into the next game and people accepting that is something that you cannot appreciate enough. You cannot, like, the fact that they changed him from this samurai mechanical warrior to a full-blown squid, that shows you how they are leaning on that idea of Yoshimitsu being this dynamic character that can change and still be loved. I mean, it's hard to say Tekken would be Tekken without characters like Yoshimitsu, Paul Phoenix, Law, some of the Mishimas.
Ancient Ogre and True Ogre. The main villain from Tekken 3 didn't get to enjoy as much time in the spotlight as some other characters. While True Ogre appeared as a boss in Tekken 5, this duo was only playable in Tekken 3 and all of the tag tournaments.
Now here they start talking about Ancient Ogre and True Ogre. I have my own ideas of what this character, what will happen with this character in Tekken 8, but first let's listen to theirs.
This is somewhat unfortunate because both versions of Ogre have something interesting to offer. Ancient Ogre is a hulking warrior with an Aztec-themed outfit. True to his name, he seems to have a mastery over all the martial arts that have emerged throughout history, which is a solid excuse to create a wholly new character by combining moves from the rest of the cast. True Ogre sheds the form of the muscular warrior and turns into a demon with claws, horns, wings, and a right arm composed entirely of wriggling snakes.
A lot of people think that the reason why Ogre is going around trying to steal people's moves and their power is one, because it makes him a better fighter overall, but two, maybe he needs this energy to summon other ogres. At the end of Tekken Bloodline, it kind of looks like the same thing happens, where he teleports away. I think the original ogre could still be alive, but the introduction of these other ogres could also play a role as well. True Ogre, on the other hand, I feel like they can incorporate that into the character's move list, maybe Rage Art, maybe Rage Drive, something like that. But to give both of those characters an individual spot on the roster maybe isn't the best way to go about it. I just want Ancient Ogre.
King and Armor King.
Next up, you have King and Armor King. I always say it's going to be hard to pick between these two. Both of these characters are extremely popular, and I would not doubt both of them being on the base roster for Tekken 8. If you look at the usage and the impact they had on the game, I think they both deserved it. But let's see what Dash Fight says.
The iconic wrestling duo, the face and the heel. Both of these characters have been popular since their inception, and it's easy to see why. The two kings immediately grab attention with their cool designs, and they take inspiration from the real-life Black Tiger and Tiger Mask. As we all know, when Tekken wants to represent something, they go all in.
I kind of like that. When you think Tekken, the Jaguar mask, the cat head, the tiger head, however you want to interpret it, these characters really scream Tekken. There's certain characters that the game would not be the same without. And I think Dash Fights is right by suggesting King and Armor King.
Which is why the references to wrestling don't stop at the visuals. Armor King and King are about as close as you can get to the true grappler archetype in Tekken. Both characters love getting in your face and executing one of the classic throws that you might see in a wrestling ring.
I do agree that the grappler mechanic is an integral part of fighting games, and I think characters like Armor King and King does that very well. Another grappler that I would like to throw into the pot of grapplers is Jaycee. I feel like if they were to replace Armor King, it should be Jaycee. The female version of Julia is possibly the best route to go when you're talking about grapplers, because the one thing about King and Armor King is they are kind of the same-ish. Even though these characters are farthest from that, just looking at them on the roster, that is what conclusion a casual person would come to. And maybe they would be less inclined to try both, or who knows, maybe it would have the reverse effect where they're more inclined to try both. But I think adding the female version of Julia to the game would just spice up the grappler archetype just a little bit. And one thing about King and Armor King 2, Armor King's story is in a very important spot right now. He has this whole rivalry going with Marduk, where in Tekken 8 is going to be the final fight between the two. If Armor King loses, he takes off the mask. If Marduk loses, he retires. I think it would be kind of fascinating to see a version of Armor King without the mask. That's something that I'm interested in seeing, but also maybe I'm not. Sometimes the question is more fascinating than the answer. Oh, speaking of Jaycee, that's who the next character is going to be. The female version of Julia. Let's pay attention to this.
Jaycee. Speaking of wrestling, Jaycee is another criminally underappreciated character. Jaycee is Julia Chang's persona and takes on the appearance and style of a lucha libre wrestler. It's an incredibly fun spin on the character, yet she only appeared in Tekken Tag Tournament 2 and Tekken Revolution.
One thing about Jaycee is she was made 100% canon in Tekken 7. I'm not sure if a lot of people are aware of that. That's the thing too. Julia, even though she kind of flies under the radar when you're talking about DLC, the topic usually is on Leroy, Fakaram, Lita, Kunimitsu, but Julia was another standout DLC that a lot of people love and appreciate. Even to this day, even though she's one of the most powerful characters, well, I don't know where she falls now that the character's been nerfed a little bit and, patch 5.0 kind of changed some things. This character has really been appreciated throughout. So I would not doubt that they want to expand on that and sort of grow this character's image by bringing in the female version.
Jinpachi.
I don't think this is realistic for Tekken 8. I think it's too many key characters in one game. You talk about Jun Kazama, Angel, Ogre, the Mishimas, maybe a Mecha Heihachi, Jinpachi. It starts to get a little bit messy when you have all of these core characters in one Tekken game. I just think it would be kind of impossible for the Tekken developers to juggle all of these topics at once, but let's see what Dash Fight says about it.
Now, it might as well be set in stone that Kazuya and Jin have to be on the base roster. But there is one member of the Mishima family that has been somewhat neglected. He was properly introduced as a playable character in Tekken 5, where he was also the main antagonist of the story mode. Unlike other members of the Mishima family, Jinpachi was an honest and honorable man, even becoming friends with Wang.
That is one thing that I think about too. Out of all the Mishimas, Jinpachi was the most good of the few. Even though good is a term that's kind of, good means very little when you're talking about Mishimas, but Jinpachi, he was the goodest out of all of them. And I think having a character like Jinpachi show up in Tekken 8, that could do some things for the story that is kind of unpredictable as of yet. Like, it could spice the character up, it could spice the story up, but at the same time, I feel like Jun Kazama, like I said, already has this good character role fulfilled. Now, don't get me wrong, in Tekken Tag Tournament 2, Jinpachi was one of my favorite characters. So if he was introduced, I would be ecstatic. But at the same time, I'm just trying to consider the story and what it has to offer.
Mokujin.
Next up, you have Mokujin. I think Mokujin will be on the base roster for Tekken 8 100%. It's a no-brainer. It's 100% a no-brainer.
Mokujin is an interesting character in his own right. He's a wooden trading dummy that came to life and seems to know every style of martial arts that exists. Despite never speaking a word, the Tekken team managed to make him rather expressive and likable through some hilarious and charming final cutscenes. However, the best part about Mokujin is he's an insanely unique way for a player to express their knowledge of the cast.
One thing that I really love about Mokujin is just seeing what other people did with the character. Of course, I was never that good to where I can play Mokujin and I can use every single one on the roster, but I feel like Mokujin is as much as Tekken's identity as like Yoshimitsu, Brian Ferry, Paul Phoenix. Tekken 7 really does feel strange without him. But like I said, I think he will 100% be in the next game. Steve Fox. I wasn't expecting him to be here. I feel like this character is another no-brainer. When you're talking about characters you want to see, I feel like you go down the realms of what if. Steve Fox is more so of a certainty.
In a world where everyone kick, this man only punch. Steve is one of the most radically different characters. For the most part, Steve uses his leg buttons for evasive movement on offense and defense. As usual, the developers focused on creating a faithful representation of the art of boxing. This resulted in an extensive move list covering various stances and styles of actual boxing.
One thing that I will say about Steve Fox, well, one, his story is very important, but two, I see a lot of people asking for like a heavyweight boxer, cause Steve is kind of like a lightweight. He's kind of like moves fast, nimble, in and out, bob and weave. But I see people asking for like a heavyweight. I don't know if they can incorporate that into Steve or if that's not what the character's supposed to be. I just think it's interesting how we're given these characters, right? A boxer, a kickboxer, Muay Thai, this, that. We're given all of these different fighting styles, and the community wants a little bit more. They want to see it evolve, change. They want to see these characters grow, whether that be in a brand new character or just the character itself. I think Steve is a really cool character, but I would like to see them spice it up just a little bit of spice. Not a lot, because it would ruin the character, but just a little bit to make him really be that boxer. But Steve is a really good character.
Bears.
Kuma and Panda is very important to the identity of Tekken as well.
This might be a bit more controversial, as bears have never been a popular pick despite being staple characters. However, Kuma and Panda have always served as a welcome comedic relief in the Tekken franchise.
I think what Dash Fight says there is kind of important. These characters are not popular picks, meaning their popularity, their usage is low, but at the same time they're core characters. And I think the bears kind of function in this kind of like Yoshimitsu, where they're like specialist characters, but at the same time, when you have new players come to Tekken or casuals come to Tekken, someone who's like, I remember that game from my childhood, let me buy it. That's when the bears and Yoshimitsu really shine through. Is that nostalgia factor. No matter how much Tekken changes, you will always have the grizzly bear, the panda, the samurai. And I think the community understands that. They understand that these characters serve a very crucial role in the identity of Tekken. And it's fine if they're on the roster even though someone may not pick them. I think having them both on the roster at the same time isn't the best, but having one of them is definitely a necessity.
Bruce.
I can say so much about Bruce. Well, one thing that I will say about Bruce is I think he's gonna be there. Just considering how despicable Fahkumram has become, I don't even like looking at the screen when Fahkumram is on it. And then you combine that with Jaycee. Jaycee's popular. She's definitely popular, but it's not super popular, and popular is different. So there is some wiggle room for Bruce being added into the game once again. Especially when you talk about Kazuya being the main focus of Tekken 8. For a character to be the main focus, you need supporting characters to help lift that character up. And Bruce is his right-hand man.
Before Brian, Josie, and Fahkumram, Bruce was the original Muay Thai practitioner of the series. Despite appearing in only 3 mainline titles, he has quite a storied past. He went from a Muay Thai instructor and underground fighter to Kazuya's private mercenary and G Corporation soldier. Now that we have Fahkumram, an entirely new character from Muay Thai's country of origin, it seems less likely that we will see Bruce again except for maybe an attack tournament.
That is kind of true. I didn't think about that. So Bruce and Fahkumram and Jaycee both kind of use, or all three kind of use Muay Thai. But the thing about Fahkumram that makes him different is that he's from the country of origin. He is Muay Thai. That is something I did not consider. Bruce uses that fight style, but he's not from there. Fahkumram is.
But it would be a treat to see one of the earliest Tekken characters enter the ring again. These are just some of the characters that we would love to see in Tekken 8.
And that's it. That's their whole, I don't know how many characters they went through, but that's their whole list of characters. Jinpachi, I don't know. Ancient Ogre, maybe. Mokujin, yes. Steve Fox, yes. Bruce, maybe. Jaycee, King, there's a lot of good ideas here, and in this video I just want to break it down and sort of elaborate on it, expand on it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing and also checking out some of the other content on the channel, but that's going to be it for this one. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.